Do you think the Germans just woke up one day and discovered that Hitler was killing Jews? Nope. Before Hitler hit the final vicious nail on the Jewish coffin, he made sure that there was enough and more public hatred towards the Jews. He made sure that the ordinary Germans hated Jews enough to justify his actions. He set in motion a well-funded state-sponsored propaganda to win the support of millions of Germans in normalizing anti-Semitism and justifying genocide of Jews. And how did he do it? For starters, Hitler created a ministry of public enlightenment and propaganda to shape German public opinion against the Jewish community. His government used art, music, theatre, films, books, radio, educational materials, and the press to incite hatred against Jews and fostered a climate of indifference to their fate. In 1924, Adolf Hitler wrote that propaganda's task is not to make an objective study of the truth, insofar as it favors the enemy, and then set it before the masses with academic fairness. Its task is to serve our own right, always and unflinchingly. Which means that under the garb of intellectual and artistic expression, he planted mass messages that encouraged abuse towards a particular community. Eventually, in Nazi-controlled media, a stereotyped Jew became a scheming traitor who conspired behind the scenes to betray the Germans. What's more, Germans were repeatedly told how the Jewish community posed danger to the German values. Films in particular played a notable role in spreading this radical hatred towards a defenseless community. Perhaps our viewers and listeners can check out films like The Eternal Jew in 1940, which portrayed Jews as wandering cultural parasites consumed by sex and money. Other films such as The Triumph of the Will in 1935, Festival of the Nations and Festival of Beauty in 1938 glorified Hitler and his Nazi ideals as best things that happened to Germany. Eventually, Germans started believing that the Jews must be eliminated. They were brainwashed enough to believe that Hitler was doing the German society a favor by running those Holocaust camps. Does this ring a bell on something similar happening closer to home? Do you think there is a pattern in popular media that celebrates abuse of a certain community that cannot seek legal defense against that hatred? If you still haven't figured it out, let us spell it out for you. In Tamil Nadu, you cannot have any success in popular media if you cannot spew venom against Brahmins. No one will fund your media outlet or production house if you won't portray the poonal-wearing Brahmin as the root cause of all evils in Tamil society. Even though most Brahmins have left the state and relocated to other states and countries many decades ago. Don't believe us? Okay then, let's start with a few examples. Do you remember the 1988 film Idu Namma Aalu? A hero from a non-Brahmin community has no other means to earn a living except fiddling with the household traditions of an elderly Brahmin man and seducing his daughter. You couldn't have missed the fact that the Brahmin men in that movie were either deeply casteist or extremely foolish, while the women were happiest when they were away from their husbands or fathers. The exaggerated sing-song accent for Brahmins that this movie used has been repeated in every Brahmin mocking content in Tamil Nadu's pop culture. Perhaps you can ask yourself, what would have happened if the film targeted some other community in Tamil Nadu, say the Chettiyars, Modaliyars, Nadars or Vanniyars, or even Sunni Muslims or Catholics as the subject of ridicule in Idu Namma Aalu? And perhaps someone could answer why it is okay in Tamil films to abuse, threaten and shame the practicing Hindu Iyer or Iyengar man while seducing and marrying women that these men raised. In this episode of Cut to the Chase with the Commune, we will call out the long-standing anti-Brahmin messaging in Tamil films that has been encouraged for many decades. But before that, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and engage with the Commune Mag on X, Facebook, Instagram, ShareChat, and Flipboard. You can also read our news and views on our website www.thecommunemag.com. We have mentioned all these links in the description below. Now, we have to first address the root cause of this anti-Brahmin attitude. E.V. Ramasamy Naikar, hailed as Periyar by his followers, is the fountainhead of the Dravidianist ideology in Tamil Nadu, which celebrates denigration of Brahmins in every possible way. He opposed the very idea of India and tried desperately to collude with Muhammad Ali Jinnah for carving a separate Dravidainazis out of India. He even crafted his anti-Hindu tirade to be able to move closely with Muslim leaders, especially after 1930s. EVR supported Jinnah's demand for a separate Pakistan, salivating for similar support from him in return. However, Jinnah distanced himself from EVR's movement because of pressure from ulema, as according to them, anyone who was not a Muslim was a kafir. Most importantly, Jinnah felt no obligation to fight for a Dravidistan anyway. Jinnah was clear that his sole interest is his objective of Muslim statehood. However, EVR kept trying. He thought maybe using Jinnah's formula of assumed victimhood will lead to a separate state. Instead of working to unite Hindus, he decided to exploit fault lines just like Jinnah did. If his supporters were to be convinced that they were the victims in Sanatana Dharma, there should be an oppressor too. And who could be a better cannon fodder in this narrative than the Brahmins? The magazine EVR edited published articles praising the ascendancy of Adolf Hitler and warned Brahmins in Tamil Nadu that they should learn from the plight of Jews in Nazi Germany and opt for course correction. Even after the fall of the Nazi regime, his approach was the same. He popularized using the word parpang for Brahmins. Originally, it was an honorific Tamil term for twice born, but he made it into a derogatory term to abuse Brahmins. Parpa should be driven away from this land, EVR wrote on 29 January 1954. He further said, however much a rationalist or atheist, if a person is a Brahmin, he should not be allowed in our organizations. On 20th October 1967, Sami Chidambaranar, in his hagiography of EVR titled Tamilar Talaivar, writes, to destroy caste discrimination, burn the pictures of Nehru and Gandhi, and also the Constitution of India. If all these methods fail to give us results, then we should start beating and killing the Brahmins. We should start burning their houses. Tamil Nadu's Dravidian politics is pretty much a derivative of the EVR ideology. It is well funded, especially by non-Hindu conversion groups. Many of Dravidianist politicians own media channels in Tamil Nadu. These staunch followers of EVR or the Dravidanazis are deeply embedded in the Dravidian ecosystem. If the Nazis peddled anti-Semitism, Dravidainazis have turned Tamil media, especially cinema, into a breeding ground for anti-Brahminism. The anti-Brahmin template is easy to set up. Deeply casteist Brahmin patriarch, Brahmin women happy to be wooed by non-Brahmin men, the younger Brahmin men being weak or unworthy of being husbands to good-looking Brahmin women, making a staunch vegetarian Brahmin man or woman eat or cook meat, the sly Brahmin traitor, a crook chartered accountant, helping a corporate criminal, the list goes on. Sometimes, all this malice is passed on as comedy. Kamal Haasan, born in a Brahmin family himself, is the champion of such vicious stereotyping. Remember Avvai Shanmugi? Wasn't the template we just mentioned above used full scale in the film? In typical Dravidian fashion and in an attempt to quell the Muslim anger against him due to Vishwarubam 1, Kamala Haasan made Ishwar Iyer in Vishwarubam 2 as a double agent who betrays his own country. Have you come across any news of a Brahmin government official going against his or her own country? But the Dravidianized Kamal did Brahmin baiting to appease Muslim fans, satiate his ego, and appease his Dravidianist friends. Well, Kamal Haasan isn't the only so-called progressive leftist to peddle anti-Brahminism. Take this movie Daya of Prakash Raj, in which he plays the titular role of a ruffian. A dominant caste man seeks the help of Daya to drive out tenants who are staying in his property. The landlord says that the family occupied his land and refused to vacate, citing various legalities. He also notes that their relative is a judge and two sons of the family head are lawyers. Before leaving, Daya asks the landlord, "What's the caste of the party?" And the scene cuts to a Brahmin household celebrating Gokulashtami. There's an old Brahmin man, the family head, sitting in a chair in the veranda who asks, "Who are you, Ambi? What case? Go right for civil, left for criminal." And then Prakash Raj enters the house with a calf, Krishna's favorite animal, singing Krishna ni begane, walking on the small Krishna footsteps column, and kills the calf in the puja room. Now just imagine the outrage that would have happened if the scene features a Muslim family instead of a Brahmin family, Ramzan instead of Janmashtami, and a piglet instead of a calf. Let's look at the next such progressive Dravidianist, Satyaraj, an avowed DMK supporter. He had written and directed a movie called Villa the Villain. In the movie, Satyaraj plays the role of Meenakshi Sundara Sastriyar, a highly successful but a cunning Brahmin lawyer. He has a daughter Janaki who falls for Edison, a poor and atheist road roller driver. In Vedam Pudidu, made by filmmaker Bharati Raja, who belongs to the Tevar community, Brahmins are not only vilified but also positioned as the central obstacle to social harmony and progress, thereby reinforcing anti-Brahmin stereotypes. Neelakanta Sastrikal, the Brahmin priest, is shown as a rigid and orthodox figure who cannot accept his daughter Vaidehi's love for a non-Brahmin. He goes to the extent of arranging her forced marriage to someone else, highlighting Brahmins as unbending and discriminatory. But have you ever heard of any incident where a Brahmin committed honor killing? In the movie, Brahmins as a whole are shown as casteist and exclusive. Krishna Iyer, another Brahmin character, is portrayed as a villain who instigates the villagers against Balu for sheltering Vaidehi and her brother. He uses superstition and religious manipulation to provoke violence, painting Brahmins as cunning and divisive figures. In the lead up to the climax, Brahmin-led mob is shown as attacking Balu's house, resulting in his death, portraying Brahmins as antagonists who are responsible for perpetuating violence and social disharmony. In the climax, where Sankara throws away his sacred thread poonal, symbolizes the rejection of Brahminical orthodoxy, implying that liberation comes from renouncing Brahmin beliefs, further cementing a negative portrayal. However, it is but common knowledge about how land-owning dominant communities indulge in caste honor killings. Take a look at all the recent successful films. Amaran is based on Ashok Chakra recipient Major Mukund Varadarajan's life. The film refuses to even acknowledge that Major Varadarajan was a Tamil Brahmin raised by a family that took pride in sending their son to the army. Was it too inconvenient for the film's producers to acknowledge that Brahmin families don't shy away from proudly serving their nation? Then do you remember Surarai Potru, the film based on Captain Gopinath's life and struggles to introduce the low-cost airline culture in India? Captain Gopinath and his wife are Brahmins. But look at the movie. Brahmins in that movie are shown as regressive old men who are critical of women pursuing education or careers. Tell me then, dear viewer, how many Brahmins do you know who are against education? If the filmmakers had such a strong hatred or commentary on Brahmins, why make a movie based on the life of a Brahmin? Hypocrisy much? Surya went on with this tirade against Brahmins in Jai Bhim 2. As luck would turn out, he also took similar liberties with Vanniyars, a wealthy caste with significant political clout in Tamil Nadu. The community made the film's director T.J. Gnanavel apologize unconditionally for making the movie. Attlee, known for regurgitating old films and concepts with grandiose, often has characters where Brahmins are shown as traitors or regressive. In Bigil, Attlee shows a newly wed Brahmin girl with aspirations of becoming a football player, but her Brahmin husband does not allow her to play and later realizes his mistake and allows her to play. What's the harm in this, you may ask? Would Attlee, or for that matter any director, have the courage to show a Modaliyar, Chettiar, Tevar, Gounder or Vanniyar family in a similar screenplay? In the same film, a Brahmin character is shown as a sidekick for the villain. Likewise, in Jawan, a Brahmin character is shown as a traitor. Another recent film that caricatures Brahmins and peddles hate against them is A1, starring Sandhanam. Guess what's the film director's name? Johnson. In the film, Saro, played by Sandhanam, is a non-Brahmin from North Chennai. Divya, who wants to marry a Brahmin rowdy, mistakes Saro to be a Brahmin initially and begins to date him later. After knowing that he isn't a Brahmin, she decides to end the relationship. But later, she comes to know that Saro saved her father and decides to patch up again. But Divya's father disapproves it, citing caste difference. Saro challenges Divya that every person has a dark side and her father is no exception. Saro then plots with his friends to kill Divya's father. A comedy of errors unfolds, and in the climax, Divya's Brahmin father is shown to have had affairs with multiple women, a fish vendor and a North Indian, and gets bashed up. Throughout the movie, Brahmin characters sporting a poonal are made to look like laughing stocks. Imagine the outrage if the female character is Dua and not Divya. Imagine the outrage if her sleazy father is shown with a skull cap having multiple wives. Another film, Kolanji, directed by Naveen Muhammad Ali, shows Samudrakanni asking a Brahmin priest, "What, Kurkalwal, will you let our temple trustee inside the sanctum sanctorum?" To which the priest replies, "How is that possible, Swami?" Reinforcing the false notion that other castes do not become priests. The worst are the films with so-called adult humor, like that New by S.J. Surya, in which Kiran plays an over-sexual seductress with that exaggerated Brahmin accent. It was in a lowly poor taste, and S.J. Surya would have never had the spine to project women from any other caste in that role. And the song from Vijay's movie Sivakasi, Yennata Solluvinungo, Vadumanga Urudungo, stereotypes and mocks the Brahmin. But what is brilliant in Tamil films, unless Brahmins are not used as soft targets for crass humor? Shall we cite more examples? Annapurni. The film is named after the Devi of Kashi to denigrate Hindus further. Here the plot. Annapurni is the daughter of a traditional Iyengar family in Srirangam and is passionate about cooking. Her best friend is a man named Farhan who uses quotes from sacred Hindu scriptures like Ramayana to groom her into rejecting her traditional values and eat meat to explore her culinary ambitions. Soon enough, she transforms from a vegetarian to a meat eater, falls in love with Farhan and decides to elope with him. Annapurni's family is shown as regressive, casteist and ignorant, whereas Farhan's family is spiritual, progressive and worthy of Annapurni's alliance. Farhan's mother is shown to be a vegetarian who performs namaz before cooking biryani. In fact, they show her to be a purer vegetarian who doesn't even taste the non-veg food she cooks. She leaves it to Allah, who blesses it and gives it a divine taste. She teaches the same to Annapurni. In a later scene, Annapurni too pulls a burqa out of nowhere right in the middle of a live cooking show, performs namaz and cooks biryani to perfection. So the message is, a young Brahmin woman is better off with a Muslim man than her own parents, as they are incapable of understanding what is good for her. Impressionable young women who believe in this kind of nonsense fall prey to what is called love jihad. Pay attention to this term, as many Indian states are coming up with stringent measures to combat it. And if you think some people are reading too much into an innocent love story with a social message, let us know in the comments what you think of a movie in which a Hindu boy quotes the Quran to manipulate his Sunni Ashraf female friend to relish pork and elope with him for a better future. Moving on. Right now in Tamil Nadu, spewing venom against Brahmins is a sure shot formula to success in media. This arrangement of state-sponsored hatred towards a community is no different than the Nazi propaganda against the Jews. And there is no law to combat such abuse and hatred, just like how it happened to the Jews in Germany. Fact is, Brahmins have become invisible in Tamil Nadu's power circuit, yet cases of caste atrocity rose by 40% in Tamil Nadu last year. Yes, casteist attacks are casteist attacks, no matter which caste is being targeted. And for how long would Tamil audience feel vindicated by watching a Brahmin get abused on screen? Long story short, Dravidianists will beam with pride if they could force Brahmins into Holocaust camps in Tamil Nadu, just like Hitler did to Jews in Germany. Now tell us, dear listener, will such camps be shut down after all the Brahmins have been persecuted? Let us know in the comments. See you in the next episode of Cut to the Chase with the Commune.